Welcome to the modeling lifestyle, where we celebrate how modelers have embraced their modeling and friendships as a lifestyle. We discuss how modeling can become a life passion and lead to lifelong friendships. The goal of the modeling lifestyle is to preserve the modeling and interests of leading modelers and the modeling industry. The modeling lifestyle is sponsored by NGMC, who believes that through bringing hobbyists together with both information and modeling, the hobby will grow stronger with more model builders than ever. NGMC, which started as Narrow Gauge Modeling Company, is focused in 1/4 inch scale across hobbies. NGMC is a market leader in 1/4 inch scale with a range of products from over 50 vendors. In 2021, NGMC became the largest reseller of out-of-production model paint in North America with over 9,000 bottles in stock. And now to Jim Kello, MMR, host of the Modeling Lifestyle.
I love the sound of a whistle.
Well, good evening and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know you're going to enjoy the show tonight. And most important, I think that you'll learn a little bit about one of the leading members of our hobby in this generation. And I believe that this is important to record what people in the early part of the 21st century are contributing to our wonderful hobby. Our shows introduce modelers who are not just great model builders, but have made significant contributions throughout their lives to the hobby of model railroading. I appreciate so much you joining us this evening on YouTube. If you have questions or if you'd like to make a comment during the show that you'd like to share with Howard, please make it on the chat function. And as soon as I find out about it, I will include it in the questions that we discuss, so that you can participate directly in our show from your position on our YouTube channel. Tonight, I want you to meet one of the real leaders in this century for model railroading, Mr. Howard Zane. Howard is not only an excellent, creative, and artistic modeler, he's recognized as one of the major promoters of our model railroading hobby, and also for helping others achieve their goals. I am one of those people that Howard has helped, and I can't tell you at certain parts in my life how much of a help he has been. And he was gracious and didn't ask anything in return. When I needed help, he was there to provide it. That's the kind of modeler Howard Zane is. Howard, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Who is Howard Zane? You're muted, Howard. I can't hear you.
How's that?
That's good. I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
No problem.
It's kind of hard to talk about yourself, Jim. I mean, I'm just an old guy. I'm 84 years old. I like playing with my toy electric trains. That's about it.
Well, that sounds like a winner to me. What got you
It's
involved?
definitely a winner. Pardon?
What got you involved in model railroad?
Oh, Jesus. In 100 words or less, I couldn't do that, but I'll give it a shot. 1941, I'm 3 years old, and Dad's on his way to the Navy. So we had Christmas early that year, and he bought me a train set. It was under the tree. Well, I played with it for about 2 minutes, and Dad took it over. And he just wouldn't stop playing with it. His butt was facing the stars, and he was on his elbows for like 3 weeks until he got orders to report to duty. And after we got out of the service, we built one layout after another, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. And his last layout was gigantic. It was 95 feet by 16 feet. It was just amazing. So that's what got me into it. Plus, I had two uncles that ran steam engines, and I had ridden with them. Actually, one, my uncle Ike, I rode with him from 1946 to about 1950. And then Uncle Ed, I rode with him once, and he scared the hell out of me, and never again. But it's quite an experience. So I guess I've been around trains all my life. I actually worked on the railroad. I was on the Southern Pacific for a year. Actually, the Texas New Orleans was the same thing. That didn't last long. but I still loved it. I had to get serious. I took a break from college. I took off for about half a year. Then went back. There you go.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good career for me.
Well,
I'm impressed.
It's far from a resume.
Well, I'm not worried about
Yeah.
We're not asking for resume, Howard. We're just trying to find out who you are a little bit.
Well,
listen, I know how talented you are. So let's look at some of your modeling and get a better idea of exactly what you do. This is interesting because this is a video that was made. And I think it shows some of the fantastic scenery that you have created.
Well, that's the town of Sandy Springs.
You must have enjoyed John Allen quite a bit growing up.
Yeah, he was a major influence, actually. That was one of your questions.
Yeah, I know. Could we see another photo? Bill? This is more of a freight yard kind of scene, Howard. At least
it is. Yeah.
So your scenery covers, frankly, a total railroad layout.
Well, the yard itself is 16 feet in length, so there's a lot of track in there. And there's the tracks in the foreground are the main line, and the track on the right are diverging tracks that go into a siding, and one goes to the other main line, or not a spur line, actually.
Howard, do you operate your railroad prototypically, or
No.
do you operate your railroad?
I just operate the railroad. I just the art is the missing link in the art is to see the train running. I just, as long as it goes forwards or backwards. My real love is actually designing and building. We have tried operational sessions a long time ago, and there are a lot of egos involved. At least there were at that time. And I don't want to deal with that. So I'm very active in the hobby. I love it. That we have no formal operating sessions because there's nothing realistic in the layout. I mean, it's realistic looking, but there's no prototype. So
Gotcha.
make believe.
Can we see another picture, Phil? This is amazing to me, Howard. I really like this scene quite a bit.
Well, that's a custom brass, Lehigh Valley T1, course brass.
Well, it really captures the view. And this one, how many engines do you have, Howard? You must have a bunch. Howard? Phil, I think Howard may be muted.
I think we may have lost Howard.
Okay. Then let's see if we can't get him back.
That's good.
While we're waiting for Howard, maybe let me introduce three of his friends that we've been asked to join us tonight to give a better idea about who Howard Zane really is. Fred Eisen, Scott Nichols, and Jan Willard. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Well, listen, can each one of you maybe tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you met Howard? I think that would be great information. Fred, you want to start us?
Sure. I met Howard, I think, at the Great Skill Train Show that him and Ken Young ran initially, probably back, I'm going to say in the early 90s when I first met Howard. And for some odd reason, I was possessed to ask if I could help him work on his layout as well as work for the show. Howard graciously allowed me to work at the show, hired me, him and Ken hired me, and then started letting me come over to his layout. So when I first started, the first 20 by 60 foot extension on those layout had not been started, but at some point, we got a chance to start working on that. And Howard was pretty cool with that. He let us all, do our thing pretty much under some supervision. But I found out later that Howard wasn't completely, because he didn't have full control over what was going on. Howard was not real comfortable with that. So I mean, it turned out really well, but Howard wasn't super comfortable with that. But he's been gracious enough to allow each of us to pick an area on each one on that portion of the layout, and he named it after us, which I thought was really, really cool. So, and I've been, working with Howard, and I've been doing model railroading for, I don't know, 50 or 60 years, probably longer. I've worked at several hobby shops. I worked at MB Klein's for a lot of years. I now work at White Rose Hobbies. There's just part-time jobs, and I just love the hobby and promoting it and learning, teaching it and learning from my customers. So, yeah, it's just a neat hobby. So, and Howard's just, wow, you can't say enough about him, how great a guy he is. So,
I got you. Well, Scott, how did you meet Howard?
Well, I met Howard. My experience was very similar to Fred's. I had been attending the Great Scale Model Train Show kind of on and off for a number of years before I actually got to know Howard well. And I guess at one point I decided, I'd been a model railroader since I was about 6 years old. I was like every other kid in the 70s and got a Tyco train set under the Christmas tree in like about 1975, I guess. And then, played with trains all through high school. But, once I got pretty much into high school, my focus became more, cars and girls and some other things that typical high school kids get involved in, especially back in the 80s. And so I was kind of dormant in the hobby for a while, and then had come into MB Klein where Fred was working, and Fred was helping me get reestablished in the hobby. And he said, "Do you know a guy named Howard Zane?" And I said, "Well, I've heard the name, and I know that he runs the Timonium show." And he says, if you're looking for some inspiration, this is the guy that you got to go talk to. He lives in Columbia. I live in Annapolis, so he's about a half an hour away. And he said, give him a call. So gave him the phone number. I called Howard one day and introduced myself. And he said, sure, come on over. We'll drink bad coffee and we'll talk about trains. And, that was 15, 17 years ago now, something like that. And we haven't looked back, and we've become very close friends ever since that first day that we met. And that's kind of my history with Howard. So.
It sounds fantastic. Jan, how about you?
A little different. I had heard about Howard, and I just started to buy brass. This was probably, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years ago. And I actually bought a piece from him, came down, met him with another guy, and I was, of course, blown away by the layout. I could not believe the beauty, everything was just tremendous. So then I got invited to the Wednesday meetings when he'd have about 5 or 6 guys come down every Wednesday, and he'd run trains and they would talk, and I met these people. A lot of them were big in the hobby, were friends of Howard's. That went on for quite a while. And the guy who was working on his trains passed away, and he knew I did some work. He gave me an opportunity. Well, I jumped on that. I'm still working, doing his trains. And for all these years, we've done a lot of locomotives together. He endorsed my business, which has grown 3 times the size it was when I started, and do all brass, strictly brass, HO steam diesels. I do some O scale. And it's been an incredible relationship because we've shared together. We've done jobs together. He'll get the locomotive. Okay, I'll fix it up. I'll paint it, come back to me, and I'll put sound in it, and I'll deliver it back to him. So this has gone on for many years, and we've taken on many projects that you would not normally see. It's been a great relationship, still is.
Well, it sounds fantastic. And Howard, obviously, you've got some really dedicated friends that have been with you a long time and fought the battles alongside.
Jim Allen.
Fought the battles alongside you. I'm really glad that you gentlemen could be here with us this evening. Howard, one of the major events in your life has to be the creation of the Great Scale Model Train Show, or as some people call it, Timonium. How did you do that? What brought that about?
Howard, you're on mute again.
Can Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay.
There we are.
It's the first time we ever done this stuff, so well, not too good. Got Sandy behind me. She knows about this stuff. I'm totally dangerous in the front of a computer. Anyhow, in 1982, there were very 81, 80, there were very few shows. And so my neighbor, Ken Young, was also a model railroader and also quite very good at it, except he never could complete anything. So he had all the expertise to run the background, like the computers and stuff like that. That's what he did full time. So we started our first show at the Ellicott City Armory, and that worked out very well. We expected 300, and we had almost 1,000. Then we moved to Maryland. I'm sorry, the hell's it? Howard County Fairgrounds in '83, and that worked out for a couple of years until the building collapsed. Then we've been to Timonium. That's where the name came from, the AKA name. People refer to it as the Zane Show. That's not true. I was better known than Ken. Ken did about 90% of the work. I just played with my train so people knew me. So it's really Ken Young Show. But thanks for the recognition. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry I backed out before. My system blanked out. When we got Sandy repaired it, she's very good.
Oh, no problem.
So the show has gone on. I mean, it's been just about who's who in serious scale model railroading in the mid-Atlantic area. But we had some great vendors, and one time we had 35 brass doers. And there's only, how many are left, Scott? One, two?
Two.
Two, yeah. It's changed. The hobby has changed. It'll go on, but it's changed. Not bad. It's just different. Is that good enough?
Yeah. So at some point, I just hate this. So at some point, you decided to retire, and along comes Scott Gear and Mike Botello and Scott Nichols, and they take it over.
Well, Ken did. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, they did.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. And go ahead, please.
No, it's Ken moved to Arizona about 3 years prior to the spell. And he was having problems getting back and forth logistically. Plus, he had a new job. He basically reinvented himself out in the West. And so he wanted to resign from the show. And so we decided to sell it. So the word got out. And we had several people. I mean, that's several. We had a few people wanted to buy it. But what we required was for the person who was going to purchase it to work for us for 1 year and learn the business and keep our employees. And the first few people would do, I don't want to impugn them because they may be listening, but they wanted to do it their way. And Scott Gear and his partner, Mike, were fine. So Scott worked for us for a year. He got water, got food for us, learned about the business, learned scheduling, learned the formulas for finance and all that kind of stuff. Learned how to do the insurance, which is not too difficult, and deal with the owners of the property. Well, we turned him loose after 3 shows, and he took over in, I guess would have been the February show of 2014. And I think he's done a very good job, actually. Different than what we would have done it, but he's done well.
I see. Well, all three of your friends have been involved at some point with Timonium. What do you guys think of the show? I mean, yeah, Scott, you're involved with it right now. I mean, what you all have been there and so forth.
Yeah, I mean,
what is Timonium all about for the people that have never been there before?
Well, I am involved in it, and when Howard sold the show in 2014 to Scott Gear and Mike Militello, I had been at that point had helped Howard for a number of years with the show and participated in some things. So it was kind of quite natural when he sold the show that I kind of got sold along with it to the new owners to kind of help manage it and that sort of thing. And I am the manager of the show now, and kind of, our operating philosophy is obviously to carry on the tradition that Howard and Ken started and to be able to support the hobbyists here in the Mid-Atlantic. And keep that tradition going, a good, wholesome family type of show where you're representing all scales out there, not just catering to maybe brass guys or just HO guys, but but kind of across the board, and promoting the hobby and trying to get youngsters interested in it, and supporting the local clubs by allowing them to come and set their layouts up. And a typical show, we might have 20, 25 operating layouts there in various clubs from the Mid-Atlantic. So it's a good opportunity for us to support them as well and what their missions are. So it's not just a business like some of the other train shows where you're just there to get as many people in the building and sell as many tables as you can and line your bank account. We truly want to support and perpetuate the hobby, and this is a really good way to do it, and a show that has existed for 40 some years now, and it's nice to be able to carry on that tradition and that legacy that Howard and Ken had started. So
Jan, how about you and Fred?
What I'll say is that I've for a number of years prior to asking Howard whether I could, work the show with him, I had attended, and it's quite a good show. It's usually 700, 800 tables, and you get a nice mix of people selling pre-owned stuff or used stuff, and you get some of the manufacturers in there. And you get a big thing. You get videos and artwork and all the different scales, as Scott was saying. Plus, you got layouts out there to look at and get some. What do I want to say? You want to get enthused about the hobby? That's one of the places to go. And it's great because the kids come in and the kids see the trains running, and you see their eyes light up, and it's just a lot of fun to watch when you go to the show. So. And it's a good shopping, thing, but I'm fairly well known in the area, so it's more of a social thing for me. I hardly get to see the show. There's hey, Fred. But other than that, and then you got to stand and talk for about 10 minutes, and then so. But anyway, I my layout's far enough along. I don't need much to buy, but but it's still fun to walk around the show, see what's available, and like you say, it's you really can't beat the show for the Mid-Atlantic area. I don't think there's many other shows as good as this one.
Gotcha. Jan, how about you? I think you're muted.
How about now?
Yeah.
I agree with what Fred just said. There's a lot of various things that you can find at a show that you won't find unless you go to the show and you see it actually there. You may see it online, but once you see it and can pick it up, it changes your whole attitude. You may decide what you're going to buy. I know I went when brass was big years ago. I went all the time. Although that's changed, that hasn't diminished the show, because the show is everything. It's not just one thing. And I think anyone in model railroading would be really missing out on a great opportunity if they don't go to the show, as well as a social aspect. Yeah, your friends go, and seeing all the various disciplines. I belong to one of the clubs that has their modular layout. You can't beat that. They draw people. It's an excellent opportunity.
Well, Howard, I'd say you really created a legacy when you started that show, because back in those days, there weren't that many shows, or they were very, very small shows. And to have something that you started and built and can see it now, you have to be awfully proud of the contribution that you've made.
Well, I'm proud, but again, what drove my driving force was actually the quality of the people that came to it. They were just wonderful folks, and I just enjoyed seeing them both attendees and vendors. We had some experiences. Some were quite humorous, some were unbelievable, but it was worth it. And the show never ran without problems, and you're dealing with the public. But I'd say 99.9% of the people that came to that show, both sides of the table, were just great. So it was
I appreciate it. I haven't had an opportunity to attend one of them, but if I ever can, I sure want to, because I've heard some wonderful things about it. In fact, we've got the three people that are now running the show scheduled. I believe it's December the 22nd. Mm-hmm. They're going to be on our show to talk about it in much more depth, and I think that'll be a really opportune time to see exactly where the show has come from all of these years. It'll be going on 40 something years. I'm not sure exactly.
Close. It started in 82. So yeah, it's 40. It's 40 years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
40 years.
Yeah, 40
So,
years.
you know, that's really something to say. I mean, I don't know how many shows have lasted for 40 years, but for it to be that successful and something that you hear about, you read about all the time. So, Howard, congratulations for starting something that's really turned into be a major part of our hobby.
Well, again, let's thank Ken because, as I said, he did.
Right.
Ken did the lion's share of the work, seriously, and I've just better known that song. That's something.
Right. And one of the things about when Howard started that show, he actually did the model railroading community a big favor by doing that, because the only show really around before that was a Greenberg show, and it was doll houses and all the different scales and toys and all that kind of stuff. So when Howard and Ken started the show, that it concentrated just on the scale portion of it, that was a big bonus for all the model railroaders in the mid-Atlantic region.
Well, I just can't say enough about it, Howard, because I think you deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the foresight to get it started like you did.
Get your butt out here and and visit one of the shows and get a better.
Oh, give me a break, Howard. Anyway, let's go back and look at some more of the pictures of your fantastic modeling. Phil, if we could see some more pictures. Howard, what is this we're looking at?
That's going into the town of Manchester. Manchester is sort of a college town. I did that for my wife, Sandy. She's retired now, but she was a full professor in college at University of Maryland. So this is, you're not going to see the university, unfortunately, but this is just going into the town. And of course, exiting the town now. That freight's going southbound. Or actually westbound.
Well, that is a fantastic scene. It really is.
Well, go ahead.
Are the buildings kit or scratch or
it's a combination of both. The single tower scratch built. The right next to it, the drugstore was my favorite kit. That was a SS Limited kit. There are actually 3 of them on the layout. Next to them was just a simple design preservation kit. In the foreground was a Walther's Cornerstone brick kit. Not a kit, but just one of these ready to run things. Just put in the layout and hope it works. Then all the homes in the new town were all scratch built.
Actually, it seems like that you weren't just dedicated to just build everything. You just used what was there, and what you had to build, you built. And if you scratch built something fine and dandy, you created a beautiful freelance model railroad.
Well, I'm going to change all those. Thank you very much. All the structures that are not scratch built are going to be a scratch built. I've replaced, or I'm in the process of replacing all the rolling stock with everything scratch built. It's just sort of an ego thing. I just like to know, hey, I built this. And there are a lot of people that model today and they buy stuff, and that's fine. It's let them. It's good for the hobby, but they're just missing out on a lot of fun, like building kits and learning and going on to scratch building. When you scratch build, guys, and you all know this, and Jim, you certainly know this, you get exactly what you want. Plus, cost-wise, it's about 25% of the cost. And then you can say, hey, I designed and built this. That means a lot. And it's also one of a kind. What could be better? So
Howard, I've got to stop you right. Let me ask you one question. I've asked a lot of people this question because I struggled with it myself when I first started building. Every time I built a model, I build a model, I sit back in my chair, I look at that model. How do I know when it's finished, Howard? How when I look at the model, do I say to myself, okay, that's it, I'm through with that one, I'm moving on to something else? How do you do that?
It's complex, or it can be simple. It goes back to the old psychiatrist artist syndrome. When does a psychiatrist know to say you're cured? When does an artist know to say, hey, this is finished? Jim, the model will talk to you. The model will tell you when it's finished. It's that simple. Just look at it. You'll know.
Okay, Phil, let's see some of the other beautiful built models that are finished that Howard did. Now, what am I seeing here, Howard?
That is the town of Mac. That's in the first edition we had in 1995. Mac was named after Frank Mac, who was one of our helpers, and one all around great guy. So it's you see the section you're looking at actually was added later because the It was too much space. I had like about an 8-foot aisle there, and I had to fill it up with something. And I was coming back from a music gig around 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had this idea. I said, "Oh my God, this will work." So I said hi to the dog and gave the cats an early breakfast. And took a nap for about an hour, and I just couldn't sleep. I had to get up, so I started sketching this thing, and I went back to sleep. And then I still had my business, so I called my general manager, and I said, "Hey, Raj, I'm not coming in for 2 weeks. I'm off the face of the planet. You handle it." So I just locked myself up in the basement. But before I did that, the key to that is to get all your supplies so you don't have to stop working and break the energy level. And I just built this thing in 2 weeks, everything, including the structures. And it really added quite a bit. And a lot of the layouts built that way. I have no plans, even though there's an old adage saying failure to plan is a plan to fail. And I understand that, but I don't follow that at all. Just build. That's the fun of it. You can call it freelance modeling. That's whatever. There are a lot of people copy, and that's fine. That's probably 80, maybe 90% of the hobby. People want to model a specific area. You guys remember Mike Williams? Mike is a young fella. I was born somewhere in the 60s, and he's modeling Troy to Albany, New York at O scale in the year 1942. He picked an exact date. I mean, he's done all the research. That's what turns him on, and that's fine. Just isn't me. That's all.
And gentlemen, please feel free to jump in here and make your comments. Anything that you'd like to add to what Howard is saying about this. So, Phil, if we can go to another model, another photo. Fantastic bridges, Howard.
Well, say thanks to Tom Marsh from Overland Hobbies. Those are Overland brass models. The one down below is a Walther's kit I built. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a Walther's kit. Yeah, it's a Walther's model.
Okay. And actually to add on a little bit to Howard's, talk about the hobby and the way people model. I get that question all the time at the hobby shops. Well, it's not very typical and you're prototypical. And I don't know. I said, whatever makes you happy. It's your railroad. You build it the way you build it. If you run prototypes, you run prototypes. If you want to run operations, that's fine. If you just want to run trains, that's great. But it's all about the hobby and you having fun. That's the main point of the hobby.
And I think it's about learning too. And I really think my concern is people like Howard, people like you guys, the talent, the skills, the knowledge that you have. If there's not some way that we can find to get that passed on to the upcoming generation of modelers, it's going to get lost. And if it does get lost, that's going to set back our hobby, in my opinion, because part of what I believe is the true value of model railroading is the model building capabilities that the hobby provides. You can learn so many different skills by being a model railroader that you might never learn just in normal life and your normal career. I can't, that bothers me so much to see people just kind of ignoring the building part of it and being willing to just buy it off the shelf and put it on a piece of plywood and that's it.
And therein lies where, a lot of hobby shops have closed up because of the internet business, but it's not really a hobby for the internet per se, because, it's been stated before, you want to go in, you want to touch it, you want to handle it. You want to see how things are done. I mean, I'm building the model railroad at White Rose. So when people come in, we watch us do the scenery work. They watch us do this, they watch us do that, and we explain it as we go along. And you can't get that. You can get some of that stuff on the internet, but seeing it in person versus on a video is a whole different aspect.
Not only that, the hobby shop used to be the gathering place when I was younger. Right. It was a place that I could go and get a question answered. It was a place that I could go and hear other modelers talk about what they were doing, and they might bring a model in and show it to everybody. Right. It's kind of a show and tell. And it was really kind of a family gathering place at that point, not just a place that you went in to buy something or spend money. Right.
And I learned a lot from my customers over the years. I've been able to teach people, and I've learned a lot from my customers.
Exactly.
So, that's just the whole thing. I mean, and we're model railroaders are very forthcoming with what they do and how they do it, which is really neat part of the community.
And now, because of the loss of those hobby shops, it seems to me that some of the shows, like the one that Howard created, they have to almost take the place of that hobby shop. They become the gathering place, even though it's not weekly or monthly. But when they are there and the other people are showing up and you can talk and share information with people that you want to talk to, that becomes the substitute for the old hobby shop, in my opinion. So with that said, Phil, let's see some more about Howard's modeling. Well, that's beautiful, Howard. What is that?
That's going into the town of Albright. That's in the very new section that's not on the plan.
How'd you make that?
Styrene. Just I took a coffee can, or some kind of produce can, and made the radius, and just carved out of styrene. It's full 40,000 styrene, and it's very, very simple.
You make it sound so easy. You know,
it is easy. It took me about 2 days to do it. It was very easy.
Well,
the key is to build the top section first. And see this line here? I guess you can't really see it. You adjust it so the bottom line, you slide the bottom one in, or else you'll never get the track work properly. But it's not difficult.
Yeah, and there's a story behind that too, because Howard, we went in, we met on Wednesdays, and we would go in, and Howard was just starting the structure, and we thought that's pretty cool looking. We come in the next week, and it looks like this. So we all went, "We're not worthy. We're not worthy."
What? Let's go to another one, Phil.
This town, this is still Albright. We're passing on the top of cottages and homes for the mine up at the top.
Yeah.
Also for the railroad.
One of the questions that we kind of skipped over when we had the viewing problem a ways back. Howard, how many engines do you have on this layout? It seems like some of the pictures, there's a tremendous amount of different locomotives.
Well, there's only a handful on the layout, but on the tables in front, I have no idea. If I had to count them, and I said, "Oh my God, I got to sell these things." I mean, I'm 84 years old. They're going to be in someone else's hands pretty damn soon, I guess.
I got you.
I don't think anybody's sure, even Howard, the exact count, but I can tell you from experience and all the hours and hours I've spent in that basement, it's definitely more than a couple.
Scott is true. All these guys have spent hours there. Fred, by the way, is well, actually Scott too. Scott had a layout. He took it down. It was just fabulous. Really, really. I mean, top class. And Fred's layout, you can see it in the background. These guys are pretty good. Jan can be a good layout, but he's a layout builder. He builds some structures that are fabulous. But he's 130% of his time is I'm doing other people's work. But he's one of the best, probably the best in the country as far as DCC and brass work, that kind of stuff, electronics.
Yeah.
Well, that's awfully rare.
I think we had a really good source of inspiration courtesy of you, Howard.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Well, thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Here's one of my things that piss the hell out of my wife. My pisses her off terribly when she sees stuff like this, but I'm from North Jersey. What can I tell you?
Yeah, well, you put that next to my town. I thought there was a reason for that.
No, it's actually on the outskirts of Eisenfred. You're safe.
You have to have a sense of humor.
Well, this structure here is the only thing that's really prototypical. I didn't take a photograph, but I remember it really well. I'm an old-time musician. Besides, I play, banjo and guitar and whatever. And I went to a festival in Mount Airy, North Carolina, many, many years ago. And being a banjo player at the time, I hooked up with this really attractive lady fiddler. And we just hit it off great. And she lived close by. And I drove down from Maryland. Well, she invited me to come stay at her place, and she'll make breakfast, and we just play tunes all night, which we did. But the deal was I was to drive her to church in the morning because her van was in the shop. It was. We drove down one holler to another hill, up another mountain, down into another holler, and finally we arrive at this church. And there it is. Looked exactly like that. The outside was completely dilapidated, but the inside was rather dilapidated, or looked pretty damn good. And we walked in, and it was very, very nice, beautiful odor. And there were two gals playing Woody Guthrie folk songs on a guitar. And that was nice. And the music stopped. And in comes this preacher, looked like something out of Ichabod Crane, out of one of Washington Irving's characters. I mean, this guy was weird. And he pulls out this trunk, like a small steamer's trunk, and puts it on a table, opens the lid and pulls out 2 rattlesnakes. I said, oh my God. So what I've told this story a few times, but this is really true. I don't remember if I exited the window or the door, but I was out of there. I never saw that gal again. So I kind of joke about bring your own snake. This being kind of dilapidated looking church. They can't afford snakes. So you got to bring your own, which kind of makes sense. That's the story behind that one. This one here, that building to the right, my son designed and built that when he was 15. And today he's a wonderful architect. He's 56 years old now.
He a model railroader, Howard?
No, he likes it though, but he wants me to be in the future. He comes down and he says, where's the maglev trains and this and that. And he's more of a futurist. And he can't understand why I modeled time in the past. And I said, John, this I belong here. I mean, I never wanted to get out of the 50s, so I was very happy. I'm happy now, but the 50s were great. So it's now you see a lot of the stuff. There's New England and Northeast Jersey, Northeast stuff. I used to model the Appalachians, like Western Maryland, Baltimore, Ohio, C&O, Norfolk, and Western, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a lament, fellas. You probably know the story, but Jim, my lament was I never saw what I was playing with. Only in book or in video or whatever. So I had to go back to my roots. So I got rid of all my Western Maryland stuff and B&O stuff and put that money towards buying Northeastern stuff, mainly Erie and New York Central. Then I do some other smaller roads like Lehigh Valley, Lackawanna, New York, Ontario, and Western, the Old and Weary, and a few others, which I remember very well. But the Erie and New York Central and Pennsy were very important because my uncle Ed ran a K4 in the Pennsylvania Reading Seashore lines. And my uncle Uncle Ike, he ran a K1 on the Erie, both 4.62s, except the K1 was like twice the size. I mean, the K4. So that's, I forgot the point I was trying to make, but go ahead. Anyhow,
You were talking about changing out all the equipment.
Oh, yeah. I had to go back. I had to go back to my. Thanks, guys. I had to go back to my roots. Now I'm not doing bad for 84, but my memory's slipping a little bit.
Yep.
So
I think you're doing great for 84.
yeah, I sold most of my Western Maryland locomotives to a pastor in a church, and I was surprised. And I said, "This is kind of off color, but what the hell?" I said, I thought you guys were in the poverty. And he says, nah, that's for the Catholics. So I thought that was kind of fun. So he bought 47 of my Western Maryland engines. As far as the number of engines, I would guess between 200 and 300 downstairs and maybe 500 or 600 upstairs. That's about it. Freight cars, passenger cars, rolling stock, a couple thousand. But that's getting
Jan, it sounds like to me you need to up his number of engines somehow. I mean, it doesn't sound like
he does. Everyone's got his work on it. He's done all the work.
I mean, I can tell you, he's not far off because all those engines downstairs, well, I probably worked on 95% of them, and we still do jobs even today. But the thing I want to say is, and I challenge anyone, and I know this is nothing new, but there's nothing out of scale in his layout. Everything is in scale. You can look down any corner anywhere and it's all in scale. That's a real art, which he is. And that makes his layout very unique.
I totally agree. I to have somebody say that about any layout, I think is high honor.
I guarantee you. I spent a lot of time looking at it, working down there, and it is all in scale. Fred Steen, I mean, it's remarkable. And when he does something, it's in scale. How do you do that? Well, it just comes natural.
Well, one thing I do that you guys probably never knew is when I paint, I always add the complementary color. So it gets a natural graying down effect.
Wow.
That is primarily one of the keys. If I don't do that, I'll put graphite or pastel powder over what I'm building. And that puts it all into one thing. If you buy a new locomotive or a piece of rolling stock, you take it out of the box and you put on the layout next to a weathered locomotive. And I call it, I don't use the term weathered. I use the term bringing it into scale, because color has scale like everything else, and that's important. Now this stuff, okay, actually, I'm saying what I started saying. If you put the new locomotive or car, the difference is astounding. It looks like a toy, even though it could be $1,000 model. It still looks like a toy, so it has to be grayed down. And that's all part. Some people don't like doing that. I've had customers that will not. I've had to unweather stuff, and I had one customer that did the job over 3 or 4 times. So finally, I gave him his money back, and I said, "Please leave before you see where my foot goes." I don't know. So it's now this locomotive here, that's heavily weathered. I did not do that. That was done that's Forrest Nason's engine.
Ah,
Well, that is beautiful. How about the rock work? How did you do that, Howard?
Well, those are simple. You can buy those anywhere. Those are those flexible rock molds.
Okay.
It started with a company called oh geez, I can't remember what they call themselves, but there's several companies. It's been sold to several companies now. It's still available, and that's very easy. They come in that color. If you can highlight it, you can dry brush whites or grays, or even fill in the gaps in in the mortar. But it's not necessary. It looks great.
Okay. Next.
I will say this also while we're talking about it. I know in some of your earlier videos, this is way back, where he would actually spend time how I make the mountains, how I do the track work, which was invaluable to people doing something like that. They're still, I mean, there doesn't matter whether VHS or CDs, they're still invaluable. I mean, that's very important.
Yes.
Because it just sets back when he did scenery. I mean, if he didn't like the scenery, he can cut that down real quick and replace it with something else. Now, that's invaluable when someone wants to change something and says, oh, I can't change it. Oh my God, no problem. So get a saw and cut it down, put something else in, and you'll never know it was done. And that's really, I always very impressed with that. I've always been, because you can't tell where something's been changed, where it's been modified. It all looks like it's one big picture in this large landscape.
Well, Jen, that goes back to the old high wop. Hide it with bush.
Yeah, right.
Oh, a high wob.
High wop, you remember that?
I do.
It works great.
Yeah.
A high wob and slightly weathered women. I remember that
Yes, yes.
very well.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
That was the first Keller video, I think. Now this was the another scratch build structure. I use real stone on the foundation. That just it's pretty simple to do. And the front and foreground, the more is more of that flexible stone. They have various patterns also.
It's Scenic Express, isn't it?
There you go. That's the current one. I'm selling it now.
Yeah.
Now the riverboat, that was my wife's idea, Sandy, because that area was going to be an expansion of the town. So she said, "Why don't we build something different?" So I put the water and I built the riverboat. It took me a weekend to build it, but it turned out all right. But it cost Sandy a trip to the tractor pull, which didn't sit over too well. No, we don't go to tractor pulls. I'm just kidding. I had no idea what a riverboat looked like, but it turned out okay. This is one of my favorite scenes. This is the town of Carl. It still says West Virginia, so I have to change that. That's named after Bill Carl, who was a vendor and a HO collector. This was the one of the Erie eastbound trains. Now I say eastbound and westbound. A lot of people have asked me that, and I guess I should clarify. If you're facing the layout, to the right is to eastbound and to the left is westbound. It's that simple. Straight ahead would be north, and facing your butt, or your butt would be facing the south. So he's going to the right, he's going east. Now everything in this town is scratch built. The car, rolling stock, the first two are LaBelle kits, and the second two are what the hell is it?
Panaro and Camerling.
There you go. Those are the kits.
The other thing I want to mention, because I saw this in the past, when you were building something from scratch, a lot of times you draw it on a piece of paper and do a drawing. The drawing itself was beautiful piece of art out of his head, and then you make the building.
Yeah.
And that's how he thinks. And it's amazing because it looks like the picture, it really does.
Well, I hear a lot of people say, I can't do scratch building. Why can't you do scratch building? Because I don't have a plan, and I don't know how to draw a plan. I don't know how to find a building I want to build.
Right.
And they don't seem to understand that it's all in your mind. I mean, you can create pretty much anything that you want to. All you got to do is just put down what you see and go from there.
You got to want to try. That's the big thing.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
it's very true.
Before you even put it down on paper, it's one of the things that Howard always said. You can, when people look at it and say, "Gee, I can't do that." Well, sure you can, and you can choose to look at somebody's art like that and be intimidated by it, or you can choose to be inspired by it. And the people that are successful creating are the ones that look at other people's art and are inspired by it and not intimidated by it.
Good point. Very good point. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Howard, when I look at your models, I look at it from the standpoint of what you have created is an art form. What you have done, it's almost like a sculpture, a piece of sculpture that you've created, or a piece of art. When I look at it, it's not just a model. It's more than that. Do you feel that when you look at the scenes that you've created and the models that you've built?
Every bit of it. But I hate to judge it, so other people have to judge it. But yeah, to me, it's art. That's what got me into the hobby, was the art. That all started by buying a magazine. My honeymoon, 1962, my first honeymoon. There have been many, and all right, don't laugh, guys. Got a curse, and so it was if the articles on the magazine were about wiring or track work, I probably would have left it on the magazine stand. But no, on the cover was John Allen, and I took this thing, and we had a weekend. I was married. I was in the Army, and had a weekend pass, and we get to this lodge, and my wife was very attractive. So she puts on this itsy bitsy teeny weeny polka dot bikini, and she looked great. And any guy would have spent their livelihood, what they make in their whole life's income, just to spend one night with this woman. She was gorgeous, but no, I had to lock myself in the bathroom and read this article over and over, and I was hooked. That was it, because I never seen anything like it. Dad's layout was nice; it was big. But I couldn't believe it. So John Allen was like light years ahead of his time. I never met him. It's a long story. I almost met him by one day, but I just never did. So there's my inspiration.
Yeah, it's one of the great regrets I have in my life. I was stationed in California back in the late 50s and had an opportunity to meet him, and girls and cars and military, and I had too many things on my plate to worry about it back then. That's one of the great regrets in my life, that I never took the time.
Well, it's at least it's well preserved. Thank God for that. That's a problem I have with my layout now. My daughter has promised to, anything happens, she'll buy the house from Sandy if I decide to go upstairs. Actually, downstairs is more realistic. And it's whatever it takes to keep the layout alive, because it's my heritage. That part's important to me, even though I'll be nothing but dust. Doesn't make any difference. I like the layout to stay. So she's volunteered. She and her husband. She's a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and her husband's a full professor in college. My son-in-law.
Well, I think that's wonderful, because to preserve what you have built, what you've spent a lifetime building, and know that it'll be there for the future generations to see, I think that's just magnificent. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, what was going to happen later on, and you answered that beautifully.
Well, a lot of these guys here worked on it. Fred was one of the original, and then there's I couldn't have built it without their help. Every Wednesday night we actually was more guys, like about 8 guys would come down.
Yeah.
And everybody was assigned a project. Fred and I, once we could be in the Guinness Book of Records for doing the most stone molding and stone rock molding in the whole night. We did, was it 26 feet, Fred?
Something like that.
It
was a crazy night.
Built the whole stone wall the whole night in one night. And so we did stuff like that. And Fred was a little tough on himself, because I actually appreciated everything the guys did, believe it or not. and I learned a lot. Even though they thought I was their guru, they didn't realize I was learning from them. And many techniques I've learned from a lot of the folks that came downstairs. And I learned a lot. I mean, you'd be amazed what I've learned. I listen, and people come down, hey, I want to see your layout. I said, sure, bring me photos of your layout. And so I can look at it. And I've seen a lot of really great stuff. And today, even though the rolling stock is mostly RTR, or ready to run, the layouts are fabulous. There's still some great layouts being built. And there's still people that scratch build. I mean, I figured I'd start another retirement business at my age and start scratch building rolling stock, which I've been offering for sale. I have about 500 pieces in inventory right now, but I haven't gone to a show. But still, I sold 101 to date by people that come to the house. And we had one fellow came to the Timonium show last month and bought 22 cars, which is great. So it's there's a market, but if I go to the shows, I might do better. But I enjoy doing that. And then I can talk to these people because I get a chance to. Let me interject one thing. The finest compliment anybody can pay me is to ask me, how did I do this? That's important. Yeah. And there's nothing worth more. It sounds like I'm tooting my horn, but being, but that's the way it is. Okay.
Howard, what would you say is the standard when you start building a model? What is the standard that you build to?
Well, my own, I guess. I try to imbibe other people's work or model as well as they do, but I just have a style, and it's kind of hard to answer that question. As I mentioned before, the model is done. It looks great. Yeah, it'll tell you, and that's my standard.
Is there a difference in your model if it's foreground versus background?
Well, in background, I tried the selective compression bit, and my layout is so large that I don't really have to do that. So I build an actual scale, but I understand selective compression, and that's fine. Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Is there a difference in the standard that you build to for foreground versus background?
Well, foreground, no. It's everything's the same standard. I don't lower my standards. There's no way I'd ever do that. Every model's got to be so someday, like I went to an auction years ago, and this very well-known old scale modeler out of Louisiana, and his layout was for sale, and they were auctioning it off. And his name was Ellison, as I recall, Frank Ellison, I think. And he was the top dog back in the 40s and the 50s. Every magazine had something on his layout. He was good, but for the time, state of the art. And I was amazed that the only thing that you saw photographs of was the stuff that you could see. And the backs of the building were nothing but an illustration board, and it wasn't modeled. Well, the only difference with me is I model the whole layout. I don't cheat on the back and I don't cheat on the sides or the facade.
Well, we're coming to coming to the close of this. Do any of you guys have any final comments or any stories or anything that you'd like to share about Howard?
One of the things, and first off, I need to thank Howard for his friendship over the years. For one thing, I mean, I cherish his friendship and what he's taught me over the years. But one of the things he was saying about doing that's kind of a funny story, that the way we did the backdrop was we would take foliage clusters with hot glue and you'd put it on there and you'd stick it on the back on this framework that it had built. And we'd back there and you'd go, ouch, oh shit. Yeah, darn, and there'd be 5 or 6 of it, and you'd all be hearing that because we were using hot glue, not the the lower temperature hot glue, and that was just so funny to hear that during the night, or during the evening. But yeah, I mean, you did teach us a lot, Howard, and thank you for that. So,
well, thanks for your help. I could have built the layout without you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have so many humorous stories I could share too, but unfortunately, most of them are probably bordering on X-rated. So, so that will be for another time. But I can tell you probably one of the most humorous things I remember. Howard and I were together working on an O-scale layout in Boulder, Colorado, and I came out for 2 weeks to help him. And I guess, yeah, we worked for like 2 weeks, and that was a Saturday afternoon. And it's like, I guess we should probably go ahead and head back east. And we kind of debated what we would do. Like, maybe we'll drive into Kansas somewhere and spend the night and then go the rest of the way home the next day, because it's like a 1,700-mile drive. Well, we ended up doing it 26 and a half hours nonstop. And I will tell you, I don't know what hurt more, my ass from sitting in the seat for 26 hours or my sides from laughing so hard for 26 hours with some of the stories that this man, told me and on this road trip coming back home. So, that's one of the fondest memories I have of Howard is spending that time and having some good laughs, learning some things. And, he's such an accomplished modeler and was such an influence with my modeling. But even more so than that, that's even more important than the modeling is just the friendship, like what Fred said. And I feel fortunate to have somebody like Howard in my life that is not only an influence with my model railroading, but is somebody that's a close friend. And that's the most important thing that you get out of this is having somebody like him that you can call a friend.
I totally agree. Well put.
I see it's getting close to 8. Well, guys, I want to thank you, Jen and Fred and Scott. Thanks for giving loaning us your time. It's wonderful. It's quite an honor.
Howard, before we leave here, I want to give you the last word.
Okay.
And I can't thank you enough for being here tonight. But whatever you'd like to share with us, I would sure love to hear.
Jesus. Play with trains, have fun, and don't take yourself too seriously. It's a wonderful hobby. And you mentioned one thing that I like to elaborate. Everything or tool or actually so many skills that are actually necessary to navigate life with can be found in this hobby, and that's important. So these people getting into it, they're going to learn quite a bit. Yeah, end of statement.
Well, Howard, I want to thank you, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate you being here this evening. It's been a real honor to be with you tonight and to talk with you and to meet some of your friends. It's obvious, Howard, the contribution that you have made to this hobby, I don't think anybody can deny, and I don't think anybody can really put into words the contributions that you have made and are still making to this hobby. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you this evening and to meet your friends.
Well, thank you for the kind word and the wonderful words. I mostly appreciate it. And again, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Howard. Yes.
Hey, there's Sandy in the background.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Sandy.
Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy, for putting up with us this evening.
No, I could have done without her. All right. So we're all set.
I think
And
more
so,
accurately, not putting up with us.
I think that pretty well. I think that pretty well draws us to an end this evening. I want to thank all of our YouTube viewers for joining us. I didn't have any questions from any of you, and so we must have covered pretty much everything that you wanted to hear us talk about. But I appreciate you participating. I hope you'll come back and see some other of our shows. Our next show is scheduled for July the 14th. And our guest is Lou Sassy. And I think you'll really enjoy meeting Lou as much as you've enjoyed meeting Howard this evening. So don't forget to subscribe to our website, newtracksmodeling.com. And if you do, then you'll be able to join us on our Wednesday show at 7 p.m. On Zoom and participate that way as well as participate on YouTube for that show too. So thank you so much again for being here this evening, and happy modeling until